Hi, I'm Brienne Brown. So we will be doing a class today that is focused on back bends. Most people really don't like back bends, and part of that reasoning is your upper back tends to be the tightest part of your spine, so this is where we try to find a little bit more mobility. And your low back, your lumbar area, is really, really mobile, and the problem is it's too mobile. So when you're doing back bends, you want to work on really engaging your core, trying to pull that low belly in. I think about it like if there's something called Uddiyana Bandha where you sort of zip up your low belly, and I think of it as like you've got a pair of pants that's just a little bit too tight, and you've got to try to pull in and lift everything in order to get those pants zipped up. So when I say zip up your pants or zip up your low belly, that's what I'm talking about, is try to engage that low belly a little bit. The other thing that tends to happen at back bends is when we go into a back bend, your ribs tend to flare out. You've got these two floating ribs on either side, and those two floating ribs just pop out in order to give you some extra space in your back. The problem is that you end up compressing your spine when you do that. So we're working with transverse abdominals. Transverse abdominals are like a big, wide, cinch-like belt of muscle that goes all the way around. They are the muscles that help you breathe. Anything that goes into your body or out of your body, either direction, that's what the transverse abdominals help you with. So what we want to do is engage them a little bit, and I call this pulling the ribs in. Some people call it knitting the ribs together, but what you want to do is pull those floating ribs in slightly using your belly muscles, and that's what we're going to be doing on a lot of these back bends. So whether or not you have a deep back bend or whether you have a really shallow back bend, you're still using the same muscles in order to try to stabilize your spine as you're doing your back bend. So don't feel like you have to get super, super flexible on me. So we're going to do some sun salutations first, and we're going to be getting into a lot of shoulder opening as well and chest opening. And then we'll be doing a couple different variations of back bends. And I'm going to be showing a lot of variations so you can pick the variation that works for you, since everybody has differing amounts of flexibility. Shoulders tend to be super tight on a lot of people. So there's just a lot of stuff that people have to work hard on daily in order to get to the point where it starts looking pretty. So we're going to start standing up and do some sun salutations first. And this is just to warm up the body. When I'm doing a back bending class, I don't tend to do a whole lot of push-ups, chaturangas, because they do tend to tighten up the front of the chest a little bit if you're not doing them perfectly, and almost nobody does them perfectly. So we're going to work a little bit on how to do a chaturanga correctly with the shoulders on your back and not rolling forward. But then we're really just going to kind of move on to some of those sun salutations where you don't have to do so many push-ups, because if you do repetitive push-ups, you're guaranteed to start getting tight in the shoulders, and we're trying to open up those shoulders today. So we're going to take the feet about hips distance apart, squeeze your legs together, grab the ground. So you're pulling the balls of your feet and the heels of the feet toward each other, and you're going to feel your toes push into the ground, but you're going to feel the arches of your feet lifting up. Another way to lift the arches of your feet is just to lift your toes up and spread them out nice and wide. You don't get all the arches of your feet, but you get some of them. So they're both really great in terms of lifting the arches. So drag toward the midline, drag the balls of the feet and the heels of the feet toward each other, zip up the belly, pull the front ribs in a little bit, roll your shoulders onto your back. We're going to take the arms up on the inhale and interlace the fingers and press the palms of the hands up toward the sky. So from here, pull that front ribs in, and you probably noticed as you pulled the palms of your hands toward the sky that your front ribs kind of popped out a little bit. So you're going to pull those front ribs in, lift up nice and tall, and stretch over to your right hand side. See if you can keep pulling those pinky fingers down and pulling the front ribs in. All right, coming up on the inhale, and then exhale to the other side. All right, come on up and release the arms to the sides. Do a couple big shoulder rolls. All right, we're going to do a slightly different variation here. We're going to go to the side. So you're going to take the arms up again, and then transfer some weight into your left leg and put your right big toe on the ground, and then stretch over to your right side. And then see if you can get your right leg off the ground. So not a lot, but what you're doing is you're working through these outer hip muscles here and getting a stretch on the left rib cage. And your ankle is probably going to be doing a lot of work to keep you stable here. So keep breathing. All right, come back to the center, lift up and stretch over to your left hand side, and then transfer some weight into your right leg and see if you can lift your left leg up. You can always keep that big toe on the ground if you're feeling a little wobbly. Pull those front ribs in. Come back to the center and release. All right, sun salutation A. Take the arms up on the inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, step back. Press forward. You're going to lower down halfway. Lift your chin. Roll your shoulders onto your back and flip your toes over. Press down. See if you can keep your thighs off the ground. If you need to, you can drop your knees. And then exhale, downward dog. So once you're in down dog, this can be fine, but you can also be in child's pose. So keep that as an option as well. Some people's wrists are a little bit weak, and it's super helpful to just be able to be in child's pose instead of down dog if you're starting to feel a lot of stress there. So take a couple more breaths wherever you are. If you happen to be in down dog, roll your shoulders onto your back. If you happen to be in child's pose, press your fingers forward into the mat so that you feel that nice stretch in your back. And look up. Inhale, step forward. Exhale, fold. Inhale, take it to the sky. And exhale, arms to side. So you'll notice that I have a really deep forward bend. Not everybody has the hamstrings for that. So you can always have a forward bend that's more here. You can also use blocks here, so you don't feel like if you don't feel like you can get all the way to the ground, it's not that big of a deal. Another option is sometimes you just start feeling that tugging here in the backs of the knees or at these insertion points where your hamstrings hit your hips. If you're feeling that, bend your knees generously. You're still going to get a hamstring stretch. It's just not going to be as much in the joints. So keep that in mind. Bent knees is great if you're tight in the hamstrings. So we're going to go for sun salutation. Let's go for sun salutation B, and then we'll move into sun salutation C since that's a little bit nicer for back bends. So big toes together, heels slightly apart. Interlace the fingers and press the palms of the hands forward and sink back into an imaginary chair. In a perfect world, your hips are way down here next to your knees, and your knees are over your ankles more, which means you need to lift that belly a whole lot. I like pressing the palms of my hands forward because that will give me some pressure forward so I can sink back a little bit more and zip up my belly a little bit more. So big breaths. All right, so this is one variation of Utkatasana. We'll do the second variation with the arms up later. Exhale, fold forward, step back, press forward, lower down. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog. Left heel pivots and plants. Right foot lunges forward. If you can't get it all the way up, grab your ankle and pull it forward. Pull that back heel down. And then you want to make sure that the inner arch of your back foot, inner arch is lifted here. So as you get that inner arch lifted, tack your right hip back and then come up for warrior one. Same thing here. So this posture, you tend to kind of lean forward here. Try to lift your front hip points up and drop your tailbone. Zip up the belly, pull the front ribs in. Take the arms up toward the sky. Look up toward the thumbs. All right, exhale. Take the hands down on the ground. Step your right leg back. Press forward, lower down. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog. Right heel plants, left foot lunges. Take it up on the inhale. Front hip points lift up, tailbone drops down. Try to get some weight into the outer edge of that back foot. Look up toward the thumbs. And big exhale. Take the hands down to the ground, step your left leg back. Press forward, lower down. Inhale, up dog. And then look over your right shoulder toward your right foot. Come back to the center and look over your left shoulder toward your left foot. And exhale, downward dog. Take a moment here. Again, child's pose is a great option. If you're in down dog and you feel like all the weight is in your shoulders, you're probably tight in the hamstrings if you feel like you're doing this. So try to get your ears back in line with your arms. And if you need to, bend your knees in order to get there. Again, you're still going to get a good hamstring stretch. All right, look up. Inhale, step forward, big toes touching. Exhale, fold. All right, let's do the old-fashioned Utkatasana. Sink down. See if you can touch the ground with your fingers. Take the arms up. Arms are going to try to get in line with the ears. If you're tight in the shoulders, stay here. Drop the shoulders. If you're not so tight, see if you can bring the palms of your hands together. Lots of work happening in the back here. And inhale, straighten up. And exhale, arms to the sides. All right, let's try one more of these. Take the arms up on the inhale, sit back. Twist to your right and hook that left elbow to the outside of your right leg. So again, try to drop the hips a little bit. If your left knee is popping forward, tack your left hip back. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just make sure you're not swinging forward with that left knee. Don't forget to breathe. If you want to do some fun stuff, and this is if you're a little bit more flexible, you can go for hand to the ground, look up toward the sky. But this is pretty tough to do. All right, let's go for the other side. Inhale, take it up. Exhale, swing to the left. Take that right arm to the outside of your left leg. If your right knee's popping forward, tack it back. Drop your hips, look over your shoulder. Maybe spread your wings, but don't feel like you have to. All right, inhale, take it up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, step back. Press forward, lower down. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, down dog. Again, 5 breaths here. Child's pose is awesome. It is not a cop-out. So if you're in child's pose, press forward into the mat. Get the hips a little closer to your heels. Get some nice stretch in the back. And look up. Inhale, step forward, big toes touching. Exhale, fold. Sink into Utkatasana. Take the arms up and look up. Exhale, straighten the legs, arms to the sides. So some of that twisting we did is really helpful for back bends. So we're going to get a little bit more twisting in there. So Sun Salutation C is quadriceps and hamstrings. To get into some good back bends, you want to get some really stretched out quadriceps here. So we're going to work on those a little bit. Take the arms up on the inhale, look up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, step your left leg back. Take the arms up on the inhale. So a little back bend happening already. Remember to pull the front ribs in and zip up the low belly. And then you can let the hips sink, but drag your left knee and your right heel toward the midline, toward each other. All right, exhale. Take the hands down to the ground. Step back. Lift your left leg toward the sky. Take 5 breaths here and try to square up the hips. Lift with your inner left heel and your inner left thigh. Flex your toes toward your face. See if you can press your right heel down and get a little bit of a lift in your right hip crease. And exhale, bring that left knee up into your chest and step it forward. Drop your back knee. All right, take the arms up on the inhale. And then let's get a little bit more into this quadriceps. So you're going to bring your hands down to the inside of your left leg. Since a lot of us are tight in the quads, this might be it. You might be just hanging out here and you're done. And that's fine. If you're a little bit more flexible, you might be able to bring your forearms to a block or forearms to the ground. But just let your breath guide you. Don't try to force yourself into a deeper position until you're ready. So big breaths, big inhales, big exhales. Just a tiny bit, drag your right knee and your left heel toward each other. Keep your chin up. Keep trying to lengthen your spine. All right, and then unwind a little bit and step your right leg forward. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, hinge the hips. Inhale, take it to the sky. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, right leg back. Drop your back knee, take it up. Again, drag to the midline, drop your shoulders, maybe bring your hands together. Pull the front ribs in, zip up your low belly. And bring your hands down to the ground. Step your left leg back. Lift your right leg toward the sky. 5 breaths here.
See if you can drop your left heel a little bit and lift your left hip crease a little bit. Square up your right leg a little bit more. Flex your toes towards your face. Zip up your low belly. And bring that right knee up into your chest and step it forward. So again, hands to the inside of your right leg. This is great. If you want to go a little bit deeper, make sure you can still breathe when you're doing that. And then maybe forearms to a block or maybe forearms to the ground. And then just a tiny bit, pull that right heel and left knee toward each other. This right leg, either forward leg, will sometimes kind of swing out to the side a little bit. That's okay. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to use your inner thigh to kind of pull in to the midline. And if it doesn't pull in a lot, you're going to just be happy with where you are. So nice big breaths, reach your heart forward. All right, and release, and you're going to step that back leg forward. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Inhale, come all the way up. And exhale, arms to sides. All right, we're going to do like a series of 3 twists in this next posture. So this gets a lot of stuff out of the way. Take the arms up on the inhale and look up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, step your left leg back and drop your back knee. And we're going to go for a twist, which is super helpful for back bends. Lift your left arm up and stretch over to your right hand side. And then look up towards your left hand. So you're getting this big stretch through the left side, and you're going to use this stretch to turn it into a twist. So keep stretching, and then take that left arm and left side to the outside of the right leg, and then lift your rib cage up and pull it around a little bit, and then bring your hands together. So your rib cage can touch your thigh and your belly can touch your thigh. You just want to make sure it's not resting. So you want to lift a little bit through that area, and then bring your hands together. And from here, some people stay here because they're tight in the hips and quads. If you want to try to go a little bit deeper into the posture, you can lift your back knee up and see if you can extend your spine, your head forward, your tailbone back. But keep in mind that knee on the ground is fine. So if everything's feeling good, look over your shoulder. Don't forget to breathe. It's really easy to forget to breathe in a twist. All right, bring your hands down on the ground. Step your right leg back and lift your left leg toward the sky. Open up the hip and bend the knee. Once you're here, you can stay here. I call this dog at a fire hydrant, but you can flip the dog if you want to into a little back bend. So if you want to do that, lift your right heel up high, pivot the toes to the left, bend your right leg a little bit, flip it over. Take your left arm over your head. You can also bring your left hand to the back of your head and get a little bit more back bend in there. Zip up your low belly. Don't forget to breathe. Back bends are the other place we forget to breathe. All right, and then flip it back over again. Lunge your left leg forward. All right, now we're in a nice neutral place here, mostly, except for that quad may be big for you. And then we're going to go for another little twist. So your right hand can go on the ground on a block. If you're feeling a little weak in the wrist, you can bring your forearm to a block. And we're going to twist to the left. So you're going to turn your left toes out to the left. Bring your left hand to your thigh and look over your left shoulder. This is great. You can hang out here, and if this is as deep as your twist gets, this is fine. Then some people like to open up a little bit more, so I highly recommend reaching back with your left arm to open up the shoulder. The problem is this right shoulder is starting to roll in. So roll your right shoulder onto your back. Try working both shoulders toward the spine using those rhomboid muscles. If you have the flexibility for it, bend your back leg. If you can grab your foot, go for it, but don't feel like you have to. So deep breaths here, looking over your left shoulder. All right, unwind, turn everything forward, and step your right leg forward. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, right leg back. Drop your back knee. All right, let's go for the left side twist. So you're going to take your right arm up and over and stretch over to your left side. Get that nice big long line through the right side. Look up at your right hand if you can. right, take that right arm to the outside of your left leg, lift your belly up and pull it around, lengthen your spine both directions, look over your left shoulder, hands are in heart center, and then you may notice your hands are on the left side of your chest. You may want to try to bring them down a little bit closer to the center of your chest. If you want to go a little bit deeper, flip your back toes over and lift your back leg up. And belly can touch the thigh, but it shouldn't be resting. A little bit of a lift through the belly and rib cage. All right, hands down to the ground. You're going to step back, lift your right leg toward the sky, open up the hip, bend the knee. You can stay here. If you want to try to flip your dog, lift your left heel up high, pivot your toes to the right, bend your left leg, flip it over. Right hand can reach, or you can take it to the back of your head and push your head into your hand. Some people like to play with back bends, full back bend. That's up to you. All right, so flip it back over again. Lunge your right leg forward. Drop your back knee. All right, so now going for the twist the other direction. You're going to bring your left hand to a block or left forearm, or you can refuse the block. Turn your toes out. Notice how my foot is kind of peeling up off the floor. That's great. And then bring your right hand to the thigh and roll your right shoulder under your back. So this left shoulder is trying to follow. What you want to do is roll that left shoulder onto your back and get a nice open chest. That left shoulder is really tough to keep back. So breathe with this. If you want to go for a little bit bigger stretch, you'll notice your left shoulder wants to roll in when you do that. And then if that seems to work, stay there. If you want to add in a little extra, bend your knee. See if you can reach back and grab your foot. It's optional. Take some nice deep breaths. All right, and then unwind and step your left leg forward. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Inhale, come all the way up. And exhale, arms to sides. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a mixture of things, kind of a merging of Warrior 2 or Sun Salutation B and Sun Salutation C. So you're going to see a couple different things, and we can just play with that. So let's go ahead and tip the big toes together, heels slightly apart. Take the arms up on the inhale and sit back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, step back. Press forward and lower down. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, down dog. Left heel plants, right foot lunges, Warrior 1 on the inhale. And then open up for Warrior 2. So you're in Warrior 2 here, and you're trying to drop your shoulders and lift your arm muscles up against your arm bones. Your triceps tend to kind of dangle here. Tighten them up a little bit. Look straight down your middle right finger. All right, exalted warrior. Turn the palm of the right hand up toward the sky and open up your chest. So it's a little bit of a back bend. This left hand shouldn't be pressing too hard though. That left leg is really lifting up toward the left hand. This right leg loves to straighten in this posture, so keep the right knee over the ankle. All right, come back through and bring your right forearm to your right thigh or your hand to the ground, and then bring that left hand into your chest and extend it so your left arm's next to your ear. And then see if you can twist your rib cage toward the ceiling a little bit. The other thing you do is turn your gaze towards your left hand, and that'll keep a nice neutral curve in your neck. All right, pinwheel your hands down to the ground, drop your back knee, and this is where blocks can come in handy here. Flex your toes, drag your heel back, and then do a little forward bend over your leg. So what I'm doing is I'm dragging my heel back. I'm pulling my leg into my hip socket, which means that I'm not overstretching the back of the knee. I'm getting the hamstring stretch right into the meat of the hamstring here. But I do like to kind of turn my toes in, drag back, turn my toes out, drag back, and just see how that feels since you've got 3 hamstrings here. All right, now step back to down dog, walk it out. Let's go for the other side. Lunge your left leg forward, drop your back heel, come into Warrior 1. And then we're going to open up for Warrior 2. All right, so drop your shoulders, lift your triceps, look straight down your middle left finger. And as you're working on this posture, you're trying to get your knee to line up with your middle 3 toes. So just kind of pay attention to that. Is my knee rolling in? Try to tack your left hip back a little bit. Drop the shoulders. Turn the palm of the left hand toward the sky, and then come into Exalted Warrior. Again, your focal point is the tips of your fingers. Try not to let that left leg straighten. See if it'll stay over the ankle. All right, come back through, left forearm to the left thigh. Bring your right hand into your chest and extend it. So your right arm's next to your ear. If this feels pretty good, roll your left rib cage toward the ceiling. If you want to go a little deeper, you can bring your hand to a block or down to the ground. And then that focal point should be at the tips of your fingers, so you have a nice little curve in your neck here. All right, pinwheel your hands down the ground. Drop your back knee. This is where blocks come in handy again. Shift your weight back so your hips are over your knee. Flex your left toes, drag your left heel back, and then do a bit of a forward bend. So again, if you're not super flexible in the hamstrings, you're going to be up a little bit higher here. If you're a little bit more flexible, you'll be able to hinge over the leg a little bit more. And then turn your toes in a little bit, turn your toes out a little bit. Keep dragging your heel back. All right, come back through the center. Let's do a down dog first or a child's pose. So pick one, take a moment. And look up, inhale, step forward. Exhale, fold. Inhale, come all the way to the sky. And exhale, arms to sides. All right, I'm gonna do a couple different balancing poses, so I'm gonna turn directions here so you can see this. So take the arms up on the inhale and look up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stretch forward. Exhale, step back. And then drop your knees. And then from here, we're going to do a couple little extensions of the spine. So right arm up, left leg back. Push down into your right toenails and claw the ground. We're working on some deep core muscles here. And then this next posture is just a little bit of engaging of some of those deeper belly muscles. We're going to try to touch our right elbow and our left knee. So as you exhale, try to touch the two together. As you inhale, extend. Exhale, try to touch. Inhale, extend. 3 more of these. Last one. All right, bring your hand down, bring your leg down. Let's switch sides. Extend your right leg back behind you. Extend your left arm out in front of you. And take some nice big breaths here, extending out. Press down through your toenails. Claw the ground a little bit with your right hand or right fingers. And then exhale, pull in. Inhale, extend. Exhale, pull in. Inhale, extend. 3 more. All right, left hand back down, right leg down. Flip your toes over, find a downward dog. Relax your neck, shake out your head a little bit, nod your head a little bit. And lunge your right leg forward, drop your back heel, come into warrior 1, and then open up for warrior 2. So we're going to use a block here. Make sure your block is at the top of your mat. From here, we're going to do that same exalted warrior Parsvakonasana, but we're going to add in a little bit more core side body stretch. So you're going to take your hands behind your head, and then drop your left elbow and lift your right elbow. And then once you get into an exalted warrior, which is essentially this, right, you're going to push your head back into your hands. You're going to feel a lot of side core muscles doing work to stabilize you. Big inhales, big exhales. All right, now bring your right armpit or right side near your right leg. Twist your right belly toward the sky a little bit. If you can get your right elbow to the inside, that's even more fun, but it's pretty big. And then press your head back into your hands. So again, working on more core strengthening. 2 more breaths. All right, bring your hands down to the ground. Turn all your toes forward. So all 10 toes are pointing forward. Put your block under your left shoulder. You don't need the block, but it's helpful. And then this right leg is not necessarily going to straighten up all the way, but you're going to try to get it straighter. So first thing you do is right knee over the ankle, twist and take that right arm toward the sky. And then press down a little stronger into the big toe ball joint of your right foot. Try to keep the inner heel down as well. As you inhale, you're going to try to straighten your right leg a little bit. Maybe it goes really straight, maybe not. And then exhale, bend the knee again. Inhale, straighten the right leg. Exhale, bend the knee again. 3 more. Beautiful. All right, so you're going to bring your hands down, drop your back heel, open it for warrior 2, and then we try for a half moon. So half moon can be really challenging, but it's really great. It's a one-legged posture that's really great for your hips. So a block helps. So you got your block here. And then you're going to put that block down on the ground, lining up with roughly your pinky toe. So you're going to start in your warrior 2, bring your left hand to your hip, and then come down. See if you can get that block in front of your pinky toe, and then toe heel that left foot forward, and then come into a half moon. Someday you're not supposed to use the block at all, but the block can be really helpful for a long time. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you may want to kind of play with trying to get the left hip on top of the right hip. So as you're here, try to get this left hip to stack more, and you're going to feel more engagement through your hip muscles. And then for fun, you may want to bend your left leg and reach through the knee. So that'll give you a little bit of quadricep stretch here. If you happen to have the flexibility, you can grab your foot. So this is called Ardha Chandra Chapasana. Half moon, grabbing your foot. So there's that. And then, nice big breaths. Extend. Come on down. Nice work. Straighten your leg. Let's do a little triangle. Reach through. Notice how my right hip dips. And then hang out here. So you don't need to have the block. It is fun. It's useful, but you can also put your hand down on your leg or on the ground or a lot higher if you're tighter. All right, pinwheel down to the ground. Step your right leg back. Press forward, lower all the way down. Let's go for a little back bend. Lift your arms and legs up. Zip up your belly. Pull the front ribs in. Squeeze your legs together. All right, let's go for child's pose. Walk your hands back behind your shoulders, roll the shoulders onto your back, and then push back to child's pose. Take a moment. All right, let's go for the other side. Flip the toes over, find a downward dog. Lunge your left leg, come up to warrior 1, then open it for warrior 2. And then again, that exalted warrior variation here. Bring the hands together behind your head, lift your left elbow and drop your right elbow, and make sure your left knee does not straighten. Press your head back into your hands. All right, come back to the center, and then left side, somewhere near your left leg, press your head back in your hands again. All right, pinwheel yourself to the ground, turn both sets of toes forward. Again, a block is helpful. Put that block under your right shoulder, and then you're going to twist, take that left arm toward the sky, press down pretty firmly into your big toe ball joint and your inner heel, and then inhale, straighten up the left leg as much as it will straighten up. Don't feel like it has to go totally straight. And then exhale, bend again. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. 3 more. This is tough because this is all the way down the IT band. One more. All right, come back to the center. Drop that back heel, come into warrior 2 one more time, and then we're going to do our half moon. So right hand to the hip, find your block, line it up with your pinky toe, take some time to get into that left leg, and then once you're in your left leg, half moon, Ardha Chandrasana. And this is great. However, getting a little bit more stretch through the quad is a great idea as well. And if it feels appropriate, you can grab that foot and go for a little bit more. So we're getting into the quads, getting into the back bends, nothing super deep yet, even though there's some balancing challenge. All right, let that go, drop it down, and then toe heel in a little bit, and then step up to the front of the mat. Okay, so we're gonna do some stuff on the ground now. Come on down. So we're gonna hang out here. Now, everybody's different. I'm making this look really easy. A lot of people do not have knees that can do this. So what we're gonna do is give you a couple different options. This is where blocks can be really handy. So if you need to sit on a block or two or more, you just sit up a little higher. What we're trying to do is get a quadricep stretch in the legs here. So if you don't feel a quad stretch, then you may need to kind of go for like part of a block and part of a blanket here. That might help a lot. So experiment, see how it goes. Not everybody needs blankets or blocks. If you're one of those people who can sit down on the ground between your feet, go for it. What I find is that if you're feeling this in your knees, this is too much. You want to get up a little higher. If you're feeling this in your feet, most likely you need a little extra stretch in your feet. So some people feel it right here in the arches of your feet, and that's not bad, but if it becomes kind of too much, take some time out, lean forward, take the weight out of your feet, give yourself a break, so don't torture yourself. So here we are, nice deep breaths. You're gonna squeeze your inner thighs in toward the midline a little bit. They don't have to touch, but you want your legs roughly parallel to each other. And you're gently stretching your knees forwards. You're still trying to get this quadricep stretch here as you engage your legs forward. This is an eccentric stretch here. So what you're also doing is you may want to go deeper, and this is just dependent on what your quads do and how your knees feel about it. So if your knees are already kind of yelling at you, don't go deeper. If your quads are fine, your knees are fine, everything's happy, you can lean back a little bit. So this is the preparation for hero pose, and some people go a lot deeper than this. So if you want to go a little bit deeper, you have to change the position of your pelvis a little bit. So you have to lift your hips and roll your pelvis, your tailbone forward a little bit more, and then maybe come down to your forearms. Again, this is a little bit more advanced, so don't feel like you have to go here. And then if this feels pretty good and your quads are really happy with you, then you can come all the way to your back. This is the full-blown pose. So not necessary, but a variation that people do eventually get to with a lot of practice. So hang out wherever you want to. Notice that your legs are going to kind of stray out to the sides a little bit, which is okay. You just want to make sure that you're using your inner thighs to squeeze into the midline. So hang out here for a little bit longer. Get the quadricep stretch. And then we're working toward back bends. And so the thing about back bends is that you need your quads to be a little longer because they really do a lot of the supporting for your back bends as you engage your belly. So take like 3 more big breaths. And we'll go ahead and do a pigeon because pigeons are awesome and pigeons are necessary. There's a reason why they're in so many different yoga sequences. So we're going to get into the outer hip a little bit. All right, so a couple different variations of pigeon. You can do pigeon this way. If you're really tight in the hips or if you have bad knees, this is a great pigeon. So this is one variation here, and you just kind of get in closer eventually, or you get yourself up against a wall, your back against the wall, and hang out here. So this is great. If you want to try doing a pigeon on your back, you do that, and you're going to go ahead and take that leg in, grab the back of your thigh or the front of your shin. Eventually that shin will come closer and closer to you. And then there's the old-fashioned pigeon that I think most people are pretty aware of and familiar with, and that's right leg in front here. So the main thing about this pigeon is I'm doing a pretty advanced version where my shin is parallel to the front of the mat. That's really not tenable for most people. So you do still want your knee pointing out to about 2 o'clock, but you're going to bring your foot in a little bit closer to your hip if that's a little bit too much for you. So this is a good pigeon here. And then if you happen to be on your front, you're going to use your block. You can bring your forehead to your block, which is very relaxing. Take some big inhales and some big exhales. All right, since we're getting ready for back bends, there are a couple different variations here. If you're doing pigeon on your front, I recommend playing a little bit with the hips and pulling the belly in, the front ribs in, and see if you can kind of walk it up a little bit. Big inhales and big exhales. This is pretty advanced. Somewhere about halfway is a really good place to hang out because this part of your hip really does talk to you. If you're on your back, you can also do a variation there. So if you're on your back doing your pigeon, what you can do
is you can essentially do what we call a bridge, which is a back bend, but you're going to do it with one leg. So you're going to pretend there's a weight attached to your knee and drop your knee down a little bit. Grab the side of your mat, roll your shoulders underneath you, press the back of your head into the ground, and then you're going to push into that left leg and drop your right knee. And this is a great posture because it gets that left quad, you get a little bit of that back bend, get the shoulders underneath you. Awesome. So either way, whichever one feels more appropriate, do that. Take about 2 to 3 more big breaths wherever you are. All right, let's go for the other side. So if you're on your front side, down dog. If you're on your back side, you're going to do happy baby dead bug. Happy baby dead bug is pretty fun. You're basically on your back, grabbing your toes and rocking from side to side. So pick that just to get your hips nice and lined up again. And then we are going to go for pigeon on the other side. So cross your left leg over. Find a spot that works. Your left knee is going to be pointing out to about 10 o'clock. Breathe deeply, resist with your right leg. So if you're on your front side, your right thigh is tightening up a little bit. If you're on your back side, your right leg is resisting the pull of your hands. Zip up your low belly. Pull your front ribs in. If you're on your front side, your tailbone has a pretty easy time of kind of rolling up, so you have the nice little natural curve in your low back here. If you're on your back though, you may find that while you're on your back, that your low back is flattened into the ground, which is not really neutral for your low back. Your low back really needs to have a little bit of a curve. So see if you can roll your tailbone toward the ground and get a little bubble of air under your low back. So as you're pulling in and resisting, try to roll your tailbone toward the ground and get that little bubble of air. You can even kind of rock from side to side. See if that helps you find it. So big inhales and big exhales. And then take about 5 more big breaths, 4 or 5. Make sure you're breathing. And 1 more big breath. All right, down dog or happy baby dead bug. Either one's great. Walk it out a little bit. Okay, so take a moment. I'm going to do a shoulder opener to help you get into a little bit more back bend. The front of the chest, the way the pec cup muscles come into the front of your rotator cuff, can make you really tight and pull your shoulders forward. So we're going to do a chest opener here. And what you want to do is start on the left side of your mat, and then you're going to do a little twist here. So the great thing is we have a lot of different angles. You're going to make sure you have a block up at the top here. You're going to scoot over to the left side of your mat, and then you're going to take your right arm out to the side. Most people do not actually have the flexibility to keep their right arm straight out to 3 o'clock. Most of us need to bring our hands down somewhere between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So just be aware of that. And then you're going to bend your left leg, push your left hand into the ground, roll onto your right side, get your left foot to the ground, take your block and stick it under your head so you have something to rest your head on. Then lift your fingers up, and this just gives you a little stretch through the arm, but you're going to switch your fingers around in a second. So take like 2 more big breaths. And this gives you a little bicep stretch, but we want to get a little deeper into this posture. So now what you're going to do is flip the hand over so the palm of the hand is facing the sky, and you're going to see if you can roll a little bit more. And that left foot is really helpful. It just kind of stabilizes you. Then, depending on how flexible you are, you may try to reach behind you with your left hand, and notice how my right hand is kind of coming a little bit closer to my hip. See if I can grab my hands behind my back. So this is a great posture right here. You're opening up your shoulders, breathing really deeply. If your shoulder tends to fall asleep here or get a little numb and buzzy, then come out of the posture, start over. You probably were just slightly misaligned, or you might be really tight and just need a little break. So here you are, taking a break or not. And then what you're going to do, maybe, is you may actually, if you feel pretty comfortable here, you may put your right foot on the ground too. So we're creating a little bit more of a twist. And then possibly your left hip will drop down to the ground. That does require some good flexibility. So if you're not super flexible, you're not going to go this deep. So you're hanging out here, breathing, getting a big shoulder opener, a little bit of a twist here, nice big breaths.
Take about 2 to 3 more, and then we're going to try for the other side. All right, and then come on out of this. And then you're going to scoot over to the right side of your mat. Take your left arm out to 9 o'clock, but then probably drop it down to 7 or 8 o'clock. Bend your right knee, plant your right hand into the ground, press into that right hand and roll onto your left hip, left side. And then see if you can lift those fingers up. Just kind of play with it a little bit. Those back fingers, see if you can lift them up off the ground. Again, we're just trying to get a little bit of a stretch to that bicep. Sometimes that's the tight spot, usually in the right arm. And then we're going to try to go a little bit deeper as well. So from here, take that arm behind you. See if you can grab your hands behind your back. See if you can open up the chest a little bit more. This is great. You can stay right here. If you feel like you can go a little bit deeper and should go a little bit deeper, you can bring that left foot on the ground and maybe even drop your right hip. But remember, we're really just trying to work the shoulders here. That extra twist is just icing on top. So big inhales, big exhales. Don't forget that breath, super important. Got about 3 more to go. If you want to get really old school about this, you can look over your right shoulder toward the sky. All right, and then slowly unwind from this. All right, let's do a child's pose, just in case those twists were pretty intense for you. So, child's pose, forehead to the ground. Take some nice deep breaths. All right, so this next variation is called the frog, Bekasana. I like using a block. Some people feel like that's a little bit too excessive for the front of the ribs. Some people just like blankets. I like having one or the other underneath because this low belly here really doesn't like to get involved in postures. It's kind of like that. Person in the group who like slacks off the most and only like does their work if it's like last minute and everybody else is like, yo, we're panicking here. Then the low belly like engages. So what I like to do is have like a block or a blanket here to help remind the low belly it should be doing a little bit of something the whole entire time. So we're going to do a warm up of the quads. We're starting to get better with the quads, but do a little bit more warm up of the quads, one leg at a time, and then we're going to try to do the full Bekasana, whatever that looks like. So keep the blanket or block nearby, and I'll show the 2 different variations. You're going to come onto your belly, and you're going to bend your right knee. So if you have bad knees, knee replacements, then you're probably going to have your shin more perpendicular like this, and you may even end up using a strap here. So your strap will be like an extension of your arm here. So that's a great posture. Wonderful. As long as you reach through the knee, you're going to get a quadricep stretch. If you feel like you can get to your foot, that's the next step. And then eventually your foot's going to come down a little bit closer to your hip. If you see all these old pictures of like Iyengar in his book and stuff, the foot's all the way down on the ground, which I think in general is a little bit excessive. So you're going to stretch their knee away from you toward the ground or toward the wall behind you. The reason why is your leg, your femur bone is like a seesaw. And if you just pull your foot in, you end up pushing the front of your femur bone forward into the ground and rubbing against the cartilage of your hip. And it's not a terribly lovely experience. So to keep that leg bone in the back of the hip socket, you want to stretch your knee toward the ground or toward the wall. Then you're going to zip up your belly. Make sure your belly is engaged here so you're not over bending your back. And you're going to just push in and breathe. Sometimes this left shoulder can get a little tired, so if that happens, you can always come down to your belly and relax a little bit if your left shoulder is getting tense. So we're going to do that for like another 2 breaths, and then we're going to try the other leg and get the quad on that one, and then we're going to try to pull the 2 together. So same thing. You can either extend out or start up on your forearm, grab your left foot, bring your left heel in. Again, it may be that your left foot's way behind you. That's okay as long as you're stretching through your knee. So you're stretching your knee toward the ground or knee toward the wall. And zip up your belly. Try to pull the front ribs in and try to pull the low belly off the ground. So you're trying to keep that low belly slightly engaged here. And then take about 4 more breaths. And this is one of those postures where if your quads are super tight, I would spend more time on the quads.
Take about 2 more big breaths. Again, you can always come down here if you're starting to feel tight in the shoulders.
All right, so this is the full Bakasana. It looks like a frog when you get into the full thing. So blanket under your low belly. Notice my pelvis is on the ground. My hips are on the ground. This blanket is right under my low belly. You can also do this with a block. I really like the block, and I'll show that one in a second. Some people, though, think that's a little bit rough. So from here, you're going to bend your knees. My low belly is pulling in off the blanket. I'm going to grab my feet. So this is a bow back bend. And then the Bakasana is trying to bring the feet in back bend. And then eventually, you're going to kind of play with your fingers. Try to get your fingers out. Try to get your fingers out. And then someday, fingers forward. This is pretty tough. Most people are kind of stuck here, and that's okay. But keep pulling that belly in. So keep doing that. If you want to play with the block, I find this to be a little more helpful if you have a low belly that really doesn't want to be woken up. So again, my low belly is against the block. My pelvis and hips are on the ground. And that helps me come up a little bit higher. And I'm zipping up my belly and trying to suck it up off the block. Nice deep breaths. Wherever you are is fine. If you feel compression here in the back, you need to pull that belly in more, or roll your pubic bone toward the ground more, or reach through your knees more. Make sure that you're not compressing your back. When you're done, push back to child's pose. So it's highly recommended that if you're doing back bends, they can be really intense, and you want to make sure that you're taking some really deep breaths and some big breath, like some big five breath to 10 breath rests between back bends. Super important to rest because it's incredibly stimulating. The shoulders, all the back muscles, the core muscles are so involved that to take a break really makes everything feel a little bit better. So next thing we're going to do, we've already done shoulders. We've already done a back bend that isn't really like a full-blown back bend, but it's definitely in this upper back area. So now we're going to do wheel. And some people prefer to do this on their belly, which is called bow if you do it on your belly. And I often do this up against the wall. So we're going to try this first in the center, and then we'll kind of play with this against the wall and just see how that works. So from here, first thing, you probably want to just lie on your back. And then this is really nice, especially in that back, that last one we did, Bakasana frog. If you feel like your low back got a little compressed, this is a great way to decompress your back. So you take your hips on the block, and then you're going to move the block really low on your pelvis, like really close to your tailbone. That's where your SI joint is. And your SI joint is a little triangular bone that is 5 fused vertebrae, and it doesn't have any muscle around it. It's all ligaments and tendons, and it can kind of get pulled out of joint and in weird directions. So you want to make sure this block is super close to your tailbone, which is right under the SI joint, relaxes your SI joint. This is also called a bridge. So you're in a good back bend here, and you can stay here. You can clasp your hands to the mat and pull your shoulders underneath you and gently press the back of your head in the ground. Great, great back bend. Then you can also, if you want to go a little bit deeper here, you can go one step higher. So my block is at the medium level right now. I can push my feet into the ground, lift my heels up, go higher, and then take my block up to the higher level. Still super low, close to the tailbone, but a little bit more lift and a little bit more upper back happening right here. So take a few breaths here. And then some people really like to play with getting into a full wheel. So we'll do the full wheel in the middle of the room, but I'll also give you some options against the wall. So good back bend here. And then if you want to do the full wheel, make sure that your toes are pointing mostly forward. They can turn out a little bit, but the more they turn out, the more you compress your back. So you want to get those toes pointing forward. And then you can take your hands over your head. So I usually get my beginner students to kind of just figure this one out first, because often if you're tight in the shoulders, your elbows are pointing out to the sides and you want your elbows pointing up. So that can be pretty tough, just trying to get your elbows up. And if that's tough, stick with this. If that's not tough, then you may want to push into your legs, get your hips off the block, and then eventually take the arms and press them into the ground. Nice deep breaths. And then remember there's that block there, so you can come down slowly to the block and then remove that block and come on down. So a couple different things here. Walk your feet out to the sides of your mat. Drop your knees in toward each other. Give yourself a little break, and just what happens is your low back gets a nice neutral curve into it, and that can be really calming and relaxing. All right, so we'll give you that option. I'll give you a bow option on your belly, and then I'll give you the bridge option and the wheel option against the wall. So from here, going to your belly. Same premise that we did in the frog. You want to stretch through the knees, pull the belly in, pull the front ribs in, roll your pubic bone toward the ground, and you're going to grab your feet. If you're really tight in the quads, you're going to go for one leg at a time, right? Like that. So pay attention to that. If you can grab both feet, go for it. Squeeze your legs into the midline. Push your feet into your hands. Take some nice deep breaths. All right, and then release. We'll do one more, especially if you only grabbed one foot. You'll get a chance to grab the other foot. Take some big deep breaths. Again, remember resting between back bends is crucial. All right, let's go for another one. So again, you'll grab the other foot, go for the one-legged version, or grab both feet again. I grab my ankles, but you can grab a little higher. Then squeeze the legs in the midline and come on up. And release. Make a little pillow, turn your head to one side. All right, and you can also do a child's pose, and that'll give you a nice extension through your spine. All right, so we're going to try this against the wall, and the reason why we do this is because so many people are tight in the shoulders, and some of those variations just don't work. So in order to get some really good practice in terms of opening up the shoulders, you can go for this posture. So what you do is you have a couple different options here. You can either place your blocks, so if you feel like you kind of have medium tightness in your shoulders, you can just put your blocks against the wall like this. What that does is that just lifts your hands up a little higher, and that means your shoulders don't have to go all the way back. They can kind of be up higher like this. If you know you're tight and you're like, oh wow, my arms are actually in front of my ears here and they're not all the way to the back, then you want to go for a little roughly 30-degree, 45-degree angle. So basically I'm putting those blocks on the lip of the trim, and then I'll do the same thing of kind of going into a bridge and possibly a wheel, but that just gives you a little bit extra to work with here. So you're going to come onto your back, put your head down between your blocks, and then make sure my hair is not in the way, and then we're going to bring your hands down. So my fingers are draped downward and my elbows are pointing straight up. Then I'm going to go into a bridge first. So I may not be able to push up all the way with my arms, but I'm going to start with my legs because all the strength of a back bend is in your legs, which is why we did all that quadricep stretching. So you're going to push, 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 push into the ground. Work those quadriceps. If you feel a burning feeling on the tops of quads, excellent. And then if you can keep your elbows pointing toward the ceiling, they're going to push and see if you can get to the top of your head here. And then elbows pull in away from the wall, and you'll go for a full-blown back bend. And if you don't need the back bend, the blocks for the back bend, then you can walk yourself in. And nice deep breaths. So those are all options. Give yourself a moment, try that. Make sure your elbows are pointing up, make sure your feet aren't pointing out,
and make sure you're in your legs before you actually do this. So when you're done, come on down. Then we're going to take a moment here and just breathe on our backs. So walk your feet out to the sides and drop your knees in toward each other. Take some big inhales and big exhales. And then I'll do one more thing. So when you do back bends, you get this amazing quadricep stretch. The problem is the muscles that bend your leg are your hamstrings. So your hamstrings get tighter. So what we want to do is a hamstring stretch just to loosen them up after the back bends, a little bit of a twist, and then we'll relax. So you're going to lie on your back. If you are tight through the hamstrings, you're going to place the ball of your foot against your strap and hold on to it. So your strap is like an extension of your arm. And then if you can grab your big toe, go for it, but don't feel like you have to. You can also bend your leg a little bit. So again, you're still going to get a good hamstring stretch. You don't have to have a straight leg. In fact, locking out your knee is a bad idea. So use your strap or grab your foot. And then you're going to pull that right leg in, but you're going to also press your left heel and left thigh toward the ground. Super important that this left leg is really engaged. And pull that right leg in, and you're going to find a sweet spot where you can't really move anymore. So right leg pulls in, left heel pulls down, and then take like another 2 breaths here. Continue to press that left heel and left thigh down. Now you're going to lift your head and shoulders up and bow towards your right leg. Part of this is just to get the spine nice and lengthened out. Take 2 more big breaths. All right, head down. Now you're going to take that strap into your right hand or that foot into your right hand. Bring your left hand to your thigh and hip. Keep that left hip down and lower your right leg out to the right. It may not lower a lot. In fact, if your left hip starts popping up, that's a really good indicator that you should stop lowering your right leg. So once you're there, take a moment and check your right heel. Right heel should be slightly higher than your right toe so that you know you have a good external rotation in your leg. Take about 2 more big breaths here. All right, bring that leg back up. You're going to switch hands on your strap or on your foot. Take your right arm out to the side. This leg's going to come over and you're going to roll onto your outer left hip. What's important about rolling onto this outer left hip here is that your leg should really be like parallel or higher. Don't let your leg go lower than parallel. And then, especially if you're kind of tight through this IT band, we did some work on it, but if you're still pretty tight there, you can take your right thumb into your right hip crease and push the top of your femur bone away, and then try to stick your tailbone out. So what you're doing is trying to create a little curve in your low back and get your leg bone to stop grinding up into the top of your hip socket. So you're just gently giving it some space there, putting your left thumb there, or right thumb there. And then to complete the twist, you can look over your right shoulder. And some people are a little higher. You might be up here instead of down lower. It's okay. All right, and then come out of it. Let's go for the other side. So left leg up. Again, use your strap or grab your foot. Your foot's going to push and you're going to pull down. So you're creating this extension of your leg in both directions. Then extend your right leg down and press your right heel and right thigh down. Pull that left leg in. Deep breaths. Again, you're going to find a sweet spot where you're able to keep your right leg down and you can't go much further with this left leg. You can also get a little bit of a bend in this left leg. And then lift your head and shoulders up and bow. All right, bring your head and shoulders down. Put that strap or that foot into your left hand. Bring your right hand to your hip and thigh and keep that right hip and right thigh planted. And then slowly lower that left leg out to the side. Stop when that right hip starts threatening to pop up, and then look over your right shoulder. And take some nice deep breaths. And the same thing here, my heel is slightly higher than my toes. I'm just creating a little external rotation there in my left leg. Take 2 more big breaths. All right,
right, bring the leg back up, switch hands on your strap or on your foot, take your left arm out to the side, bring that left leg across. You're probably tucking your butt under too much, which is a posterior tilt in the pelvis, and you want to get rid of that and create more of an anterior tilt in the pelvis. So stick your tailbone out, take that left thumb in the left hip crease, tack it away from you, and if you need a little bit of a bend in the left knee, do that. And then look over your left shoulder to complete the twist. Come on out of that. And one more thing. So the psoas can get a little tight. So what we're going to do is a little psoas stretch, and this can be a little bit too much information sometimes. So from here, what you want to do is swing your legs over to one side. So we're going to go ahead and swing the legs over to the left side, like windshield wipers, dropping down to the left. Then, and this is great, you can hang out here, you may feel kind of a stretch through the front of the right hip and through the outer sort of sartorial muscle there. Great idea. But if you want it to be a little bit more intense, a little bit more of a stretch, then you're going to lift your left leg up, place your left foot on your outer right thigh, and just let it hang out there, or you can apply a little bit of pressure. So this will put your low back into a natural curve, but it's also going to give you a nice little stretch through that sartorial muscle and through the psoas. And then again, look over the right shoulder. So it's a little bit of a twist. Not super deep. Take about 2 more big breaths. All right, then you're going to lift that left foot up, place it on the edge of your mat again. So you've got your feet on the edges of your mat, and then you're going to drop your knees over to the right side like windshield wipers. Place your right ankle on top of your left thigh if you want to. You can also keep them the way they were. And then maybe apply some pressure. Again, there's going to be a nice little curve in your low back, and then you're going to look over your left shoulder. All right, after back bends, there are 2 things that I really like to do to rest. So you have some options here. One of them is the hips on the block, where you're in kind of a back bend with your sacrum on the block. The other is Viparita Kirani, the legs up against the wall. So you can use a wall for this. So legs up against the wall, you're going to take your block to the lowest level, and all of your hips are going to be on the block, and you're going to take your legs up. This is a really great way to just drop the blood pressure, because back bends can be a little agitating sometimes. So big inhales, big exhales, you can just feel your blood pressure dropping like this. If you would like to do this for a little while and then a shavasana, that's a great idea. Another really nice variation where you don't have to use your leg muscles as much is go up 1 level and then move that block a little closer to your tailbone. So we did this a little earlier in the practice, and you can hang out here. And this feels really good because sometimes, as much as you try to avoid it in a back bend and use your belly, sometimes you still get that little bit of compression in the low back. So this is just a great way to stretch out that low back, make sure it's back in a happy place. And then slow down your breath. So this is where 3-part breathing can be really, really nice. Inhaling into the top of the rib cage, and then the middle of the rib cage, and then down in your belly area. And then when you exhale, exhale out of your belly, exhale out of the middle rib cage, exhale out of the top of the rib cage. So it's almost like the air is pouring in, and then you're flushing it out. Close your eyes, roll your eyes in toward the midline where your eyes and nose meet. And again, you can stay here for as long as you want to. The longer you can stay in Shavasana, the better. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But if you need a little guidance to get out of this eventually, push your feet into the ground to remove the block and get the block out of the way. And then you may want to roll over onto one side. Again, you could stay here, but if you maybe want to roll onto the side and come up to your seated posture, bring your hands into your heart center. At the end of the practice, we say peace, peace, peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So bring your hands up to your forehead for kind thoughts, down to your lips for kind words, and down to your heart center for kind intentions. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And thanks.